Thank you, Taylor. I guess everyone can hear me and see me, or if not, I guess I'll, I'll, I'll look for somebody to put something in the chat or something here, but
You're good to go. We can hear you and see
okay,
the
good.
presentation.
Yeah, you never know. I was once on a workshop where the guy was going and nobody could understand him and we couldn't stop him. But anyway, thanks for Taylor for putting this all together and others involved with this. And I want to talk a little bit here just about record keeping. I know Shannon was talking about it, and you know, everybody I think is talking about it, and it is very important, I think, in terms of not just for individual specific things, but I think it's almost just kind of almost like a way of doing business. It's almost like a lifestyle of just almost like washing your hands when you go and are out in the field, or you go to the restroom or the bathroom, you need to wash your hands. Just becomes like that. And I think in terms of when you have a farm operation, keeping records are just as vital for your management as those daily hand washing there. And I want to look at, you know, might ask, you know, why would you keep records, I guess, you know, and kind of the obvious thing might be, well, you know, so you know when you can deliver, how much you can produce and what kind of quality. You know, a lot of producers, I think, have that experience and that memory in their head, but it's something that just doesn't pass on to people that are around them necessarily, unless it's recorded. And another good reason to think about having records as well is just with your crop rotations. This is example here from a older cooperative extension publication, but you know, the basic idea is here, if you have any of the crops from one family, you know, like say the corn here from Graminia family, you know, that shouldn't be planted back to corn no more than once in the 3 years. The same with like the cucurbits here, I guess you could say, you know, from cucumber, muskmelon, pumpkin, squash, and watermelons. You know, so if you plant squash 1 year, you wouldn't want to come back with pumpkins or any of these other crops here, you know, after 3 years on the same ground, just to keep some of the issues associated with the viruses in the soil at bay. That's another good reason. Another reason to think about it is, you know, I mean, record keeping is very important here for thinking about, you know, what are your most profitable enterprises and when. You know, I know flowers are one of those things. I know Dave mentioned in terms of having edible flowers. Flowers have turned out to be a big selling item for a lot of farmers markets and producers, and having records in terms of, you know, the market demand as well as the costs that go into that is something that is very important for that. You know, we're looking at a picture in the background here where there's just, you know, more onions and you can, you know, that's all they have is onions. It's unlikely that that's going to be the, you know, the crop that's going to carry at the end of the day. If that's all you have, you probably have, especially if it all comes at once there, like in the photo there. But if you can, you know, schedule and keep track of the different crops that you potentially can grow and how you grow them, I think that's something that can bode well with growing your enterprise. I just have a picture here of Duncan Family Farms. This is back in the 90s, and back in the 90s, I don't know if I was actually, of course, around them, but they were working on a lot of direct marketing out there in the Goodyear area, and they would have a lot of farm tours, and they would have the U-Picks come and everything. And one of the challenges I know that Kathleen said they had way back then in the 90s was trying to track in terms of the labor that was involved with all their different enterprises that they had going on. But they had, you know, school tours. They were actually taking things to the restaurants, to the wigwam there. So it really came down to, you know, how they could get their employees to track the amount of time that they were spending on all these different enterprises in their operation. And, you know, I think that kind of attention to detail and that kind of culture that they have in their farm there is really what has allowed them to really grow to be, such a large organic farm, and they have, operations, all over now, and they're by far the largest organic producer here in Arizona, or certified, as well. And all the composting they do, all that, the detail that they tend to in terms of making all that compost and everything comes out in terms of their management style, and allows them to really be able to grow their enterprise. This is a photo here of a Steadfast Farm out in the Mesa area. And one of the things that, I find kind of interesting there is that he grew his farm a little bit smaller every time, in the sense that he found it more profitable to have less acreage instead of more, in the sense that, he was getting like, 5 to 7, green crops on these beds here. And so having like an acre here farmed more intensively allowed him to build up the organic matter better, and then trying to have more land that he couldn't necessarily keep, the weeds off of, and the organic matter content up. So farming more intensively was more profitable for them than having a larger land base. So I think, and it's like Dave mentioned, he only had, a couple acres. So when we're thinking of, farming urban agriculture, we need to think, farming intensively and not necessarily on large acreage. And Eric here, I know even in COVID times, he had over 300,000, he said, gross, but he had to switch a lot from where he was distributing a lot of things to restaurants, to where he pivoted to where he was doing a lot of food baskets and other things. But this also shows how he's, farming intensively on there. He has a couple of high tunnels, and, labor is a big issue. And, having these sides rolled up and down is a lot of labor. And one of the things he was able to see and envision was that, okay, so if we can put these sides where they come up and down on automatic here, where they have temperature sensors on there, that'll free up a lot more time. So, I think a lot of it here, and the microgreens that he has, that's very labor intensive, but at the same time, it doesn't take up a lot of space. And you can see he's also had some of the tomatoes here in the high tunnel. You think of high yield per square foot, per square meter of production there, and all that, in terms of all his management and everything is tied to a lot of the records that he has. As Shannon mentioned, record keeping is involved in the food safety. This is just an example here of somebody, with organic production here. Some red beets. If we have an outbreak or something, we have to be able to know where to trace that and keep track of that. So, that is, another important reason, for having our records that we have, to be able to trace back for food safety of consumers, and not, destroy any more, produce than is needed. Another thing, of course, is just which everybody has to do pretty much, is file your taxes there. And the IRS has different periods here of limitation here in terms of how long you need to keep your records. And one of the things, I guess, to keep in mind here is if you were filing a fraudulent return here, they'd say there's no limit. But I guess, of course, if you're filing something wrong, you probably don't want to have any paper trail as well. But oftentimes people will say, well, I don't need to file a return. And that can be true, especially even on tribal lands. There's laws where you don't need to file in terms of on the returns from agriculture on there. But the IRS also says there's no limit to the records in terms that must be kept there with regards to on your financial records that are kept with regards to that. So that's something to keep in mind, I guess. You would have to keep your records indefinitely here if you didn't file a return. Plus, the other thing to keep in mind is that records are often used for a lot of programs, like the Whole Farm Revenue Protection Program is built off of your IRS Schedule F tax form. So that is currently has the highest subsidy in terms of percentage rate of any of the kind of crop insurance programs out there. So there are reasons to keep records, I guess, beyond just your own management in terms of qualifying for different programs that are out there. I guess, some of the reasons people might give for not keeping records would say, well, you just don't have the time to do it. That could be one thing there that is going, or I think another thing that's often out there is you don't want your spouse to know where the money goes, maybe. I know a lot of people are putting money into the farm and not everybody necessarily in agreement there. So you don't want to have records to get caught there. The other reason maybe is not to keep if you have any lender, guessing where that money is to ability to repay. Is there ever going to be a payout here for all that investment? And that often gets back to the spouse in terms of where the money goes. Maybe you don't want to have records, so you don't want to make it more difficult for the IRS, find you guilty of fraud or something. But another reason is that you're just not that organized. And that's where hopefully in cooperative extension here and with our programs, we can help you out some. This is a photo here of just a couple 3-ring binders that we have available on crop records and livestock records. I know Shanna mentioned that, they don't have to be something fancy. They can be something simple, just something written down. And we found that several of us in extension here that these can be a valuable tool, especially for people getting started for keeping different records. We have what's called this pocket crop record book here. It's something meant for you to carry out to the field to keep track of different things. And also then the records in here then would go into the 3-ring binder. And I'm just going to show a little bit about this here, and just as a resource that's available for you to do. And also, I know we're not in person here where we can just, I can give these to you, but I will say that next week, there will be a training a week from Tuesday in Florence, where there's a series of 4 classes starting up November 2nd, the first Tuesday of every month there, November, December, February, and March. And most of the focus will be on livestock, small animal and cattle, and a lot of focus on the processing side, and also USDA programs, value-added producer grants. And we also like to have, of every class at the end of after lunch, usually from like noon to 1:30 or so, an in-field tour where we go out and actually do a farm tour. So if you're interested in that, you could, this is information. This is what the agenda looks like for the second. You can call, 520-313 that 2134 there, and or future forward at cox.net there to connect there and get registered there. But this is kind of an example of, I guess, what the remaining 3 classes will be like as well. We typically have, from like 9 to noon, and then a farm tour there in the afternoon. Dr. Sam Garcia, who's the manager of the U of A Meats Lab, or the Food Product Safety Laboratory, is going to be speaking there on the 2nd. So I'm going to run through here quickly a little bit about kind of what is in some of these crop record keeping workbooks and just highlight a few things here. I note we have like the operation description, daily record logs, rainfall records, financial records and receipts, just envelopes for those, all those things. I think the one that often gets overlooked is just, this operation description, and especially this part here about important contacts. You might know everybody, you have it all in your phone or wherever, but you have to think about what happens if something happens to me and I'm not available. Is there a place where people can go to find information on the important contacts of this operation? I think that's something we always need to be thinking about as to, where where can someone go to find everything that they need to in terms of knowing if I'm not around in particular. Equipment, that's another one of those things, you know, I mean, in terms of just when it was purchased, and conditions, some of those things, obviously the conditions usually you can go out and see, but you can just have a record of some of these things can be valuable. In the crop workbook there, we also have things on, you know, putting together your planting date, your fields, species, different notes, whether it's in a hoop house, greenhouse, weeks of harvest, all that information can kind of be put in there. That also fits with the daily event log, you know, say you have any chemical, pesticide applications, fertilizer applications, labor, water, all those things put in there. They can go and put into the 3-ring binder in terms of looking at, you know, that same information if you want to kind of better organize it there and have that put in there. Also, there's spreadsheets. You could put this in as well easily. You know, these are kind of like spreadsheet kind of templates. But, you know, there are programs available to kind of help track on some of this as well. But oftentimes we find that the written form kind of makes it, you know, something that's really quite amenable for a lot of different formats. Precipitation, you know, I mean, under crop production, you may not think it's really that important, but, you know, being able to keep track, I guess, of where, especially on ranch land, you know, that's pretty viable, important, just because there's such variation in terms of maybe from one section to another section. You can have a lot of variation there, and keeping track of the cumulative precipitation. Dr. Crimmins may talk about this as well. So we have both of these in the pocket notebook, where you can put in some of the precipitation and also record that in the 3-ring binder. Harvest records, that's something else that's very important. You know, this is an example here of a place where they're actually, you know, growing for the community. They're still trying to keep track of how much was produced there and where. So, you know, having a scale there so they could weigh it was something important there. And that, again, like we have on the pocket notebook, a place for your harvest log here in terms of the information that you've been able to, the species, your tomatoes, whatever it might be, how much it weighed, how it was sold by, where it sold, percent marketable. You know, there's a lot of information there you can keep just in that pocket notebook. And also, you know, was talked a little bit about in terms of certified organic production. You know, certified organic production does require a lot of records. And, you know, not every certified organic farm just grows certified organic. It can also grow conventional as well. Comes as a surprise to a lot of people. But basically, you know, a lot of people will ask me, you know, well, should I grow organically or should I grow conventionally? You know, well, a lot of it comes down to the prices, the yields, cost, just like in any enterprise, whether it's, you know, you're looking at tomatoes or cucumbers or watermelons or different crops there. You have to think about, you know, what is my revenue? What are my costs involved? And what kind of comes down to my net return here that I'm looking at. So just as a quick note here, I know I do get questions on this. Where can I go to for, you know, some of the difference in terms of prices? Ag Marketing Service does have, you know, like market reports, where this is the one that gives some here on organic versus conventional prices there. And as you can see, the spread there is not, it's not even always positive there, you know, for organic. As you can see, there are some negatives here. You know, you have like on the green collards there, we have a negative premium there for the organic, and even here for the carrots, you can see by the per bunch it's negative, whereas by the pounds it's positive. So I figured that one out. But basically, you know, there is typically a premium for organic, as most people know in the store, whatnot. The question comes down to, you know, is that premium enough to offset maybe what could be some of a a discount that you might get in yields and whatnot. Here's some more links to price information. Everything from chicken, dairy, eggs, turkey. This is tied with ag marketing service as well. And one thing to note though is that the prices are probably not going to be, for your specific area. These are more, kind of national prices, but they do give a reference in terms of something to look at. And the yield thing, that's something that comes down to basically on kind of like a, your local basis or farm basis in terms of what is the percentage yield discount you might have in terms of having a organic versus conventional. This is some estimates here that have been made using the USDA organic surveys that have gone out. And you can see in general, like most vegetables, broccoli, about a 17% they estimated here in 2014. Tomatoes, upwards of 60%. A fair bit of a discount here. And the other thing, though, is that typically when you switch to like organic in the early years, you'll have lower yields than later after, the organic matter tends to maybe be able to drive more on the fertility and whatnot. Plus, you also have the transition period where you're not necessarily able to qualify for the organic prices there. So that's what can make organic production, I guess, a little bit challenging. But overall, there are examples even with commodity agriculture here where organic production has been, shown to be a little bit more profitable per acre than conventional. So this is an example here where the green is organic soybeans. Was done out of University of Illinois. Note here at the lower end, in terms of the lower deciles, there are some farms that are out there that, with the organic side, less profitable than the conventional side, which is kind of what you'd expect in the sense these could definitely be the farms that are out there transitioning, looking to start into organics. They've got a lot of startup costs. It takes a while for the organic matter to build up, become a source of nitrogen fertilizer and whatnot. So, all these factors are important, I guess, in terms, being able to keep track of to determine, whether something like certified organic is something that you should pursue or not in terms of your operation. So just to kind of summarize here, kind of 5 steps for record keeping here on the financial side anyway. Keep all of your income and expense receipts. That's number one. And oftentimes, if you have different business credit cards, that can be helpful, for different businesses. But, those business credit cards are a good way of keeping track of things. But you still, by the IRS laws, still need to have that receipt of your cash receipt for expenses as well as any sales there. So, keep that in mind. But I think obviously, using, point of sale methods for receiving and making payments electronically help, on the record keeping side, definitely. Think about having those business transactions recorded, and then if you can transfer everything to where you can organize it into a monthly ledger, I think that is something that we've tried to do in these 3-ring binders to make it possible there, and then so that you can then go down and maybe estimate some of your farm profit or loss, not just on an annual basis, but look at the cash flow on a monthly basis, and then also look at it in terms of on your enterprises for your different crops and different activities that you have out there as to what may be, your best avenues to be pursuing there. So, just summarizing here, records are one of those things I guess we can't necessarily get away from, kind of like paying taxes there, but there with pesticide use reporting, the food safety we mentioned, the crop rotations, a lot of the USDA programs. Also, records are becoming more and more known as a tool for helping you in terms of your liability protection on the legal side. Just protecting what you've done there, that you followed the best management practices, those good agricultural practices, the good handling practices. That's very, very important there. And as I mentioned in the beginning here, it's really difficult to manage anything that is just not measured and recorded and tracked over time. If you can't measure it, you're really going to have a hard time managing it. And if you can't measure it, and record it to where you have it to go back and compare from one year to the next, it's very difficult to see, did you succeed or not in terms of some of your goals. So again, I'll just put up here where to contact if you're interested in getting going to these in-person sessions. They'll be starting up a week from tomorrow in Florence there, and these will be in person to where we'll be able to hand you out some of these record keeping workbooks. We'll have them available in the notebooks there as well. So with that, if there's any questions or comments.